Welcome to We the People, a new birth of freedom. Thank you so much for stopping by. I trust that you'll subscribe, tell your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, your enemies, and have them watch these videos and leave comments below. I'll get back to you. Certainly appreciate it. I was thinking earlier today, and I want to read this to you. It's something we should all be familiar with. This is the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitled them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Now I'm going to get into that on another video, but here's what I want us to focus on today. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We hold these truths to be self-evident. In other words, this was not the decision of a Supreme Court, of a political party, of some legislative process. And certainly, because of what they had experienced and was experiencing at this time with the King of Britain, this was not the decision of a tyrant. This was not the decision of a totalitarian regime or government. We hold these truths to be self-evident. See, that's why our founding fathers did not give us liberty. They only told us that these liberties, our life, our liberties, our pursuit of happiness, were self-evident truths. They're intrinsic, they're inherent in each and every one of us. We're born with it. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. In other words, these self-evident truths are simply that all men, and that men means gender neutral, both male and female, because they did have wives, they did have children, that these self-evident truths that all men are created equal means that every individual has the same access to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's just that simple. That all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable rights. Now, this has nothing to do with politics. This has nothing to do with a president, a king, a monarch, a pharaoh. This has nothing to do with some political legislative process. That they are endowed by their Creator. Politics did not create you. The Supreme Court did not create you. The Republicans, the Democrats, the Libertarians, no political party created you in your mother's womb. Think about that. That all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. This was not decided from a political party. This was not decided by a Supreme Court, a judge, an attorney. This is determined, predetermined by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these what? Among these self-evident truths, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You see, if political laws can give you life, can give you liberty, can inspire you or give you the pursuit of happiness, map out the course, that's what I want to say. If political laws can map out the course for your pursuit of happiness, then political laws can take it away. But these are self-evident truths that we are born with, given to us by our Creator. life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, in other words, to protect these rights, to make sure that they remain intact, to make sure that there's no interruption to these inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. From the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, what ends? The self-evident truths of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that every human being born has the same access to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not defined by politics, but given to us by our Creator, by the laws of nature and nature's God. That is so simple, that is so evident, that is so plain, it leaps off the pages. But so many politicians in Washington, D.C. don't get it, or they just don't want to get it, because see, in law school, they're not taught the laws of nature and nature's God. Why not? This is America. This is not some other country. This is America. The laws of nature should be taught first, and then political processes. Political laws are to make sure that these inalienable rights that are self-evident truths that we're born with, political laws are to maintain and secure those rights. And only the individual can forfeit those rights. You see what happened? When you read these words and you look at the historical setting of our founding fathers, they lived these things out. They're writing about what they lived out. In other words, for example, the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom to peaceably assemble. See, they lived that out. Freedom to express grievances against governmental powers. They literally lived those things out in their pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and in their communication with the King of Britain. They lived these things out. That's what they did. They wrote about it. They communicated to him by writing, by talking, by trying to negotiate. That's what those 25 grievances, I think there's 25 under the Declaration of Independence, that they expressed to the king. They communicated these things to him. They wanted to have the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom to write these things, the freedom to talk these things, the freedom of speech. And so they literally lived out the First Amendment to the letter. They peaceably assembled to try to negotiate independence, liberty, in its truest definition. And what is the truest definition? You're born with it. If the king would have just submitted to that, understood that you're born into life with liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Nobody gives that to you, and only you can forfeit it. That's the soul, that's the core, that's the meat and potatoes of our founding documents. You are born with these things. They're inalienable because you're born with it. No political party, no Supreme Court, no government gives it to you. They're only supposed to protect it. Protect what you're born with. They don't teach that in law school, apparently. Or if they do, it's totally ignored. Interesting, isn't it? You're born with it. It's inside you. So after they exhausted all of the elements and the characteristics of the First Amendment, remember, they lived that First Amendment out. They lived it out to the letter. And after they exhausted all of the characteristics and the elements of the First Amendment, what was the next step? The Second Amendment. They picked up firearms. They went to war to defend the life, the liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that they were born with according to the laws of nature and nature's God given to them by their Creator. That's why the Second Amendment is carefully, strategically, precisely placed under the First Amendment, because once the First Amendment has been exhausted, the next line of defense is war. Because if a governmental power, if a political legislative process continues to strip away at your life, your liberty, and in your pursuit of happiness, and after negotiations and talking and conversing and writing and trying to work it out peaceably, when it cannot be worked out peacefully, what happens? Bloodshed, war. They lived it out to the letter. If you take all of those 10 amendments and look at it in the context of their history, of their lives, they lived each and every one to the letter. That's why they could write about it. They experienced it. It wasn't off the cuff. It wasn't something they pulled out of a book. They lived it to the letter. That's why they could write about it. That's why it was so important to them. That's why they were willing to sacrifice everything that they had to secure these rights that were inherent inside of them. Interesting, isn't it? Until next time, be a true American, and God bless you.